The seller of this PSP said he didn't have time to fix it, which probably means he broke it when he was trying to fix it. This video is sponsored by iFixit. More on them in a minute. Whew, there we go. I didn't want to break that, that's for sure. So these little tabs right here, if those break off, then this won't fit on here. And this is a pretty nice looking shell. So I want to make sure that I don't break anything. Let's check the voltage on this battery. And we get 0 volts on the battery. Also, it looks like maybe the battery's bulged out a little bit, so we might need to replace that. So what we need to figure out next is how this could have possibly suddenly had no display just after replacing the battery. As you can see, just removing this cover, slipping a new battery in, that's all there is to replacing the battery. So I feel like there's probably something else going on here. Ah, this screw has not been reinstalled down here. This front plate is just falling off right here before I even have all the screws out. That's not good news. Okay, here we go. Let's see what we have under here. And the first thing I notice is a missing locking tab right here. I don't see anything else too crazy yet, but that's worrisome. And now I think maybe the board can come out. Hopefully, possibly. Come on. There we go. And surprisingly, I don't actually see any major issues with this board. So I'm wondering if the seller, for some reason, thought he had to unconnect this screen ribbon cable and broke it off. I don't know for sure, but that's most likely for the backlight, which means the screen could work just fine. The backlight just might not work, because without the lock on this, the ribbon cable that plugs into it just isn't gonna make a good connection with these little gold pins right here. And that's what connects down to the motherboard. So I think the first thing we need to do is try and connect this ribbon cable connector and either replace it or put the lock on there that's been ripped off, and maybe it'll work after that. Although that battery is down to basically 0 volts, so I might need to see if I can find a different battery that has some voltage in it, so then we can plug it in and see if it'll work with a new battery. So here's the connector that doesn't have the locking tab. The good news, actually this part of the connector looks like it might be broken. The good news is that I think I found another one that is the right size. It looks like it is anyway. It's got the 4 pins, about the right size. The locking tab works correctly. So I think what I'm gonna do is replace the entire connector, because this right here is broken off. So yeah, so even if I replaced the locking tab on this one, it still wouldn't work because this connector is broken. So what I need to do is remove this connector and then install the new one onto this board. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm actually just gonna take this connector off using a pair of side cutters. And then in order to safely remove this connector from this board, I'm going to heat it from the bottom using a hot air soldering station, and that will let this just basically fall right off. Then I can install that onto this board. I use iFixit tool sets all the time in my repair shop. In fact, one of my favorite iFixit toolkits is the ProTech toolkit, because it's got lots of bits for almost anything you might need to take apart, including the driver and an extension. But then it's also got pry tools, a suction cup, ESD strap, all of these tweezers and pry tools over here. And then it also comes in this fancy canvas case, along with this top that goes over the bit kit. But also you can use this top for organizing your screws, and it has a magnetic attachment, and then it all folds up into this nice canvas toolkit.
One of the things you might not know though is that iFixit sells lots of parts for lots of electronic devices, including parts for things like the Steam Deck, and they also sell crucial SSD kits for lots of different devices. If you're looking for parts for the device you're trying to repair, I highly recommend checking out iFixit first. They always test all their parts to make sure they work before they send them out, and if you do get a part that doesn't work, they have a great return policy. Like I said, right now they've got lots of great deals on brand new crucial SSD upgrade kits. I'll put a link to iFixit right in the description so you can check out their parts and their tools for yourself. The main reason I'm using side cutters instead of like heating this from the bottom side is just because there's other connectors right around here, and I would not want these connectors to also fall off or melt or anything like that. So I'm just not going to take any chances with that and just use some side cutters to get most of the plastic off, and then I'll come in with a soldering iron and remove any of the metal and any of the solder that are on these pads right here. In order to smooth out the solder on the top of these pads, I'm going to use a little bit of flux. That'll help the solder flow. Then I'll bring my iron in and touch each of these pads. That'll melt the solder and help them smooth out a bit. Now this is an old broken board that was liquid damaged and not fixable. So the connector I need is right on the other side of the board right here. So what I'm going to do is heat up this part of the board, and then I'm going to pull down very gently on the connector, which you won't be able to see unfortunately. But once the solder melts around that connector, then the connector will just pull right off the board. Then we can install it on the other board. And now we have the connector we harvested. Now we just need to line it up with all these pads and we can get it soldered on. Okay, what do we think? Pretty close, right? Now I need to get this soldered on without touching a bunch of this plastic, without melting a bunch of this plastic. Some of the plastic on the side will probably melt, but that's fine as long as the integrity of the connector stays intact. And that actually went a little bit faster and better than I thought. It is a tiny bit crooked. That's not going to be enough to cause any problems at all, so I'm not going to redo it. All of these pins are soldered on nicely. The mounting pin over here is also soldered on very solidly, so this connector is good to go. And with that connector now replaced, let's get this board back installed and see if it's going to work. All right, and now the moment of truth. Is this going to plug in how it should? Okay, LCD is in. Now let's see if we can get what I think is the backlight in. Okay, good so far. Come on. That really doesn't want to go in there. And I'm not sure why. Okay, so the only thing I can think is this connector is just for a different type of ribbon cable, that it may be a thinner ribbon cable or something, but it is clearly not wanting to go in there. Bummer. Okay, so then the other option is I do have another PSP board that has the exact same connector that I can replace it with. So it looks like that's probably what we're gonna have to do. And back under the microscope, I just noticed a major problem with this ribbon cable. If you see right here, there's a break right here and right here. So this connector doesn't really matter because the ribbon cable itself has a break right here. So one of the ways we could fix it is we could replace this trace or possibly make a little solder connection here. But the seller actually included a brand new screen with this. So I think what I'll do is plug in the new screen and then see if that screen will work. Also, as you can see, I am getting this ribbon cable connector in here, but I think the main problem is this connector is meant for a thinner ribbon cable. I think I can probably make this one work, but it's definitely not ideal. I might just have to replace this connector still. I figured I might as well give it a try and see if I could create a solder bridge between this point and this point that will cover up and restore this connection right here. It's not a great like long-term repair, but I do want to see if it's possible. Okay. That actually worked better than I thought. So now we actually have a pretty good strong connection here. Let's get this back installed in that PSP and see if it's going to work. Okay. The locking tab definitely doesn't like it, but it's because the ribbon cable is a little too big for what we're trying to do here. Actually, I'm just going to leave that locking tab up. I think we have a good enough connection just with that ribbon cable in there because it's so fat that it's making a really tight connection in there. We're just going to leave it like that. Now I do have an original Sony PSP battery pack, just because sometimes those aftermarket ones are just not great. Yeah, there's no lights or anything like that. So we are gonna have to give this a good charge and then we can try it out, see if it's gonna work for us. Okay, now with it plugged in, let's see if it'll turn on first of all. Oh, we got a green light already, okay? That's good. No, oh, we have something on the screen. So there you go. You can see a little bit of the image there with the light from my phone showing that the LCD is indeed working. So we do know that the LCD does work, but I think between that connector, the ribbon cable not fitting in there, and then obviously I repaired the ribbon cable, we got to get a new connector on there that's meant for this, or else it's just not going to be ideal and probably not going to work at all. So I've got this PSP that I can steal parts from, so let's get the connector off of this one, install it into this one, and then we'll see if that backlight will work. Since we have this working board and this working connector, I think a better option, rather than just replace this connector on this board, is to just put this board into this PSP. There's nothing special about the board of a special edition PSP. It's exactly the same as a regular board, so that's what I'm going to try here. And then I'm going to plug this screen in to see if these circuit traces down here that we kind of fixed with solder, if those work. And I'll probably still replace this screen, but I do want to see if that actually fixes this one. And out with the old broken board and in with the new, hopefully working board. Now let's try and connect this down here. There we go, that's how it's supposed to work. The locking tab, I need to pull it out a little bit so the locking tab can close. I don't want to break this connector too. So pull it back just a bit. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't want to break that locking tab for sure. Yeah, let's see if that's good enough. It's not all the way in, but might be enough to see if it'll work. So battery's in. Let's see if it'll turn on. And no, it won't. Let's see if it'll turn on with it plugged in to a charger. Okay. We do have power with it plugged into a charger. Let's see if we get anything on the screen. I actually see nothing on the screen at all. Okay, so let's try with the other screen. And here is the new screen. Hopefully this new screen works. The new screen is fully installed. Locking tab is all the way down. And here we go with the on button. We've got power. Come on. Oh, I see backlight. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so we know that works. Now we need to test the disk drive. I'm going to get this thing mostly back together, and then we need to test the disk drive and see if that's going to work. Now let's get some power and see if it works. Okay, it is spinning up. And is it gonna work? And yes, it does. So there we go. The UMD drive actually works just fine on this PSP. So this PSP is officially fixed. If you like this type of video, you'll probably like the video where I bought 44 broken handheld game consoles, including some PSPs. I'll put the link for that video right up on your screen now, so you can come hang out with me over there and see if I could fix those 44 broken handhelds. Thanks again to iFixit for sponsoring this video. Links to iFixit are right in the description. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have a good one.